Ethan Carter had never been the type to chase attention. In the fast-paced world of Silicon Valley tech startups, people came and went like coffee orders. But Ethan? He was the guy who stayed. For nearly 6 years, he had poured his heart, sweat, and sleepless nights into Synertech Solutions, a mid-sized software company nestled in downtown San Francisco. He wasn't flashy. He didn't network aggressively or post thought leadership threads on LinkedIn. But what he did do was deliver. Quietly, consistently, and with razor-sharp precision. Every product launch he touched ran smoother. Every intern he mentored went on to earn full-time offers. Every last-minute client crisis found him at his desk, typing away long after midnight. So when the meeting invite popped up in his calendar titled, Project Debrief, Urgent, Ethan didn't think much of it. He was expecting a review of their recent mobile rollout. The one that, while delayed, had actually exceeded performance benchmarks. He walked into conference room B with a notebook in one hand and a lukewarm cup of coffee in the other. Mark Dwyer was already seated at the far end of the table. As Synertech's director of engineering, Mark had a reputation for being tough, demanding, and deeply insecure. He smiled with the kind of politeness that felt surgically applied. HR was there too. Jessica Cho, their polished and painfully corporate HR rep, sat quietly beside him with a manila folder resting on her lap. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Hey Mark, Jessica," Ethan greeted. "Didn't realize this was an HR thing." Mark gestured toward the chair across the table. "Why don't you take a seat, Ethan?" His stomach tightened just a little. He sat down. Jessica cleared her throat. "Ethan, we want to begin by thanking you for your contributions to Synertech. You've been a valuable member of the engineering team." However, Mark interrupted, his voice cool and precise, due to the ongoing issues with the AlphaX mobile release and recent client dissatisfaction, we've decided to make a structural shift in the team. Ethan blinked. "Wait, what issues?" "The AlphaX release actually performed above expectations. We fixed the crash loops before go-live, the user base grew 12% in 2 weeks, and there were delays," Mark cut in. "And we need accountability. The board is expecting a response to our Q3 performance." Jessica slid the manila folder across the table. "This is your separation package. We're offering a 2-week severance and outplacement support. Your system access will be revoked by the end of the day." Ethan stared at the folder. Mark leaned forward. "Let's not make this harder than it needs to be." There were so many things Ethan could have said. He could have pulled out the Slack transcripts showing how Mark had overridden his engineering timeline. He could have pointed to the Jira tickets, the GitHub commits, the raw data that proved this wasn't just unfair, it was manufactured. But he didn't. He simply nodded once, slowly. "Understood." Mark relaxed just slightly, already turning his attention to his phone. Jessica stood to escort him out. As Ethan walked back to his desk in the open plan office, a few colleagues looked up. Some nodded sympathetically. A few others pretended not to notice. His closest teammate, Jordan, mouthed, "What the hell?" Ethan just shrugged. It took him 10 minutes to gather his things. A couple of personal notebooks. A USB drive. The cactus he kept on his desk. When he opened his laptop to shut it down, he noticed Outlook still open. His hands hovered over the keyboard. Then, calmly, he began typing a goodbye email. Subject, "Farewell and good luck. Hi team. As some of you may already know, today was my last day at Synertech. It's been an incredible journey working with such talented, driven people. I've learned a lot here, and I'm genuinely grateful for the time we've shared. I wish all of you continued success on your paths here. If you ever find yourself looking for a new challenge, one where innovation, transparency, and growth are more than just buzzwords, feel free to check out where I'm headed next." www.novatk.io/careers. Wishing you all the best. Ethan Carter. He hit send. Closed the laptop. Picked up his cactus. As he walked out of Cinerteca's glass doors for the last time, he didn't look back. Not yet. But he would. And when he did, the view would be very, very different. By the start of the third month, Novatech was no longer a whisper on the edge of the tech scene, it was a name people were starting to say out loud. They had crossed 8,000 users without $1 in paid ads. Bootstrapped. Lean. Fast. Engineers loved it. Project managers swore by it. A few venture firms had already started circling, and a quiet buzz was building around what people were calling the revenge startup. Ethan didn't like that title, but he didn't correct anyone either. In a dimly lit co-working space in Soma, Ethan leaned over a whiteboard scrawled with deadlines, server migration notes, and a list titled, What Not to Screw Up. Jordan stood next to him, sipping from an oversized energy drink. You know the funniest thing? Jordan asked. What? Someone from Cinertech just applied through the site again. That makes 11? Maybe 12? Ethan chuckled, not out of arrogance, but disbelief. Mark must be losing his mind. Oh, he is, Jordan said, flipping his laptop around. Check this out. On the screen was a leaked Slack message from Cinerteca's internal channel, now anonymously posted to Blind. If I see one more engineer jump ship to go play pirate with Carter and his fantasy software cult, I'm going to lose it. We are a professional company. We don't bleed out talent to a guy with a laptop and a cactus. Mark D. Ethan's eyebrows rose. He mentioned the cactus? He did, Jordan grinned. You're officially in his head rent-free. They both laughed, but only briefly. Because now things were serious. With the unexpected spike in adoption, Novatech's back-end infrastructure, originally built for a few hundred early users, was showing signs of stress. The real-time sync feature was lagging during peak hours. A few beta testers had flagged bugs. Nothing catastrophic yet, but if they didn't stabilize soon, the momentum could collapse. That's when Rachel called. Rachel Owens had been one of the best project managers at Cinertech. A force of calm in chaos. Smart. Strategic. And, most importantly, someone who understood how to grow a team the right way. She'd stayed behind after Ethan left, hoping things would improve. They didn't. I'm not even sure what my title means anymore, she said during their call. Mark changed the org chart 3 times in 2 weeks. Morale's at rock bottom. No one talks during stand-ups. It's like the soul's been sucked out of the place. Ethan nodded. You ready to leave? I was ready a month ago, Rachel said. I just needed to know this wasn't a rebound startup. That you were serious. I am, Ethan said simply. She joined the next week. With Rachel on board, operations tightened. Sprints ran cleaner. QA feedback loops shortened. More users came in. More team members followed. Ethan didn't have to poach anyone, Cinerteca's broken culture did all the work for him. But growth came with new problems. One morning, Jordan burst into the workspace with an envelope in hand. You're not going to like this, he said, tossing it onto Ethan's desk. Ethan opened it. A cease and desist letter. From Cinertech. Allegation, misappropriation of trade secrets. Inducing employees to breach non-compete clauses. Damaging the company's reputation. Ethan read it carefully, then again, slower. They're bluffing, he said at last. I never stole a thing. Everyone who left did it on their own terms. Doesn't mean they won't try to make it ugly, Jordan said. For the first time in weeks, Ethan felt that old weight in his chest again. But it didn't last. Instead, he forwarded the letter to a startup law firm that had already offered him discounted representation. The reply came quickly. Your IP is clean. They have no case. If they push, we push back harder, with documentation. Let them swing first. So Ethan waited. But the lawsuit never came. Because Mark Dwyer wasn't trying to win a legal battle. He was trying to scare him. It didn't work. 3 weeks later, something strange happened. A LinkedIn notification pinged on Ethan's phone. Mark Dwyer viewed your profile. Then, a message. Let's grab coffee. Just the two of us. No HR, no lawyers. You owe me that much. Ethan stared at the screen. No, he thought. I don't. But part of him was curious. What does the man who tried to bury you say when he realizes you didn't just survive, you built something better? Jordan, he said slowly, how do you feel about a little face-to-face? Jordan blinked. With Mark? Why? Ethan's eyes narrowed. Because sometimes, you need to let people see what they lost, up close. The coffee shop Mark suggested was one of those sleek, corporate-looking places in the financial district. All chrome and glass, overpriced cold brew, and not a trace of personality. Ethan arrived early, not out of eagerness, but preparation. He wanted to choose the seat facing the entrance. He sat with a straight back, arms crossed, watching the door. Mark Dwyer walked in 5 minutes late, wearing a tailored navy blazer and the same smug expression Ethan remembered from every passive-aggressive one-on-one they ever had. Mark spotted him and walked over with a thin, polite smile. Ethan, he said, extending a hand. Still drinking those $5 Americanos? Only when someone else is buying, Ethan replied, not shaking his hand. Mark didn't flinch. He sat down, adjusted his cuffs, and took a breath like he was preparing for a negotiation. Look, he began, I'm not here to rehash the past. What happened, happened. We made decisions. You made decisions. Fine. But what's happening now, it's not sustainable. Ethan raised an eyebrow. You mean the part where people are quitting your team to join mine? Mark's jaw tightened just slightly. They're burning bridges they don't even realize exist. You think Silicon Valley forgets? It doesn't. You're selling them a dream. But you and I both know startups don't scale on ideals. I'm not selling anything, Ethan said calmly. People are coming to Novatech because they believe in the work. Not because I pitched them some fantasy. Mark leaned forward. Let me be clear. You're building on borrowed talent. Borrowed loyalty. When the buzz fades, when pressure mounts, who do you think they'll blame? Ethan took a slow sip of coffee. You came here to warn me? Mark smirked. I came here to offer you a path back. A real one. No drama. No grudges. Synertech is restructuring. I'm moving up. We're expanding internationally. There's room for a new senior architect. A fresh start. Better pay than before. Clean slate. There it was. The offer. Ethan stared at him for a long, silent beat. Not because he was considering it, but because he couldn't believe Mark thought he would. You fired me, Mark. You walked out, Mark shot back. And then torched the company on your way out. That wasn't a torch. That was a door. People walked through it because they wanted out of your system. I just gave them an option. Mark's eyes sharpened. If you think I'm going to let Novatech siphon off my team, damage our hiring pipeline, and embarrass us publicly. You already let that happen, Ethan said. By building a culture no one wanted to stay in. Mark opened his mouth, then closed it. Ethan stood. He'd heard enough. You didn't build Synertech. People like Jordan, Rachel, and a dozen others did. You just managed it until it broke. He pulled a business card from his wallet and placed it on the table. On one side, Novatech's logo. On the other, careers, we're still hiring. If you want to apply, Ethan said coolly, go ahead. But we have a very strict no bullshit policy. He turned and walked out. That night, back at the co-working space, Ethan debriefed the team. I don't think we'll hear from Mark again, he said, throwing the business card down like a souvenir. Rachel laughed. You gave him our card? I wanted him to have options, Ethan smirked. Jordan looked up from his laptop. Speaking of options, check your inbox. Ethan opened his email. Subject, term sheet, Series A proposal. A major VC firm. A serious number. 7 digits. Clean equity. No weird clauses. Novatech had just received its first formal investment offer. Ethan leaned back, stunned. The startup that began with a cactus and a farewell email was now officially worth fighting for. 3 months after Mark's coffee shop pitch, Novatech wasn't a startup anymore. It was a movement. They signed the Series A deal with Greenlight Capital, a firm known for backing founder-led companies that actually ship things. The funding round gave them a $22 million valuation. Overnight, Novatech had the runway to hire, scale, and push their platform from promising prototype to full-fledged product. But Ethan didn't celebrate with champagne or balloons. He celebrated by showing up to work at 7 a.m. the next day, sleeves rolled up, code editor open, and Slack already buzzing. Because now, the real work began. Hiring, hustle, and heat. With Rachel running operations and Jordan heading up engineering, Novatech brought on its first official head of growth, a sharp, no-nonsense strategist named Claire Bennett, formerly of Dropbox. Claire didn't waste time. She overhauled their brand positioning, pushed them onto Product Hunt, and lined up beta partnerships with 3 major accelerators. The result? Novatech jumped from 8,000 users to 20,000 in under 6 weeks. And that was just the beginning. They moved into a real office, a second-floor brick and glass space in Soma with sunlight, whiteboards, and plants that weren't already half-dead. Ethan placed his cactus by the window. A quiet reminder of where it started. Still, the momentum came with its own problems. Feature requests piled up. The support inbox got overwhelmed. Investors asked for weekly updates, burn rate reports, and growth projections. The honeymoon was over. Now came expectation. One night, as the team sat scattered across the office, some coding, some eating takeout, some debating UI bugs, Rachel looked over at Ethan. You good? She asked. He blinked. Yeah. Just, trying to keep the ship upright. You built the ship. We'll help steer it. He smiled at that. Tired, but genuine. Mark's last move. Just when Novatech was finding its groove, an unexpected ripple hit. A journalist from TechCrunch reached out. They were doing a deep dive piece on founder retaliation, and Mark Dwyer had apparently spoken on record. The headline dropped the next day. From betrayal to billion-dollar hype, when ex-employees build rivals. In the interview, Mark called Novatech a vanity project born out of bitterness, and accused Ethan of weaponizing disloyalty. He even claimed Novatech's architecture was inspired heavily by Synertech's early frameworks. It wasn't true. But it made waves. Some investors panicked. Claire was furious. Rachel wanted to release a counterstatement. But Ethan? He waited. And then, he wrote a blog post. Not defensive. Not angry. Just honest. Title, Why I Walked Out. He laid out the truth. No accusations. No personal jabs. Just data, decisions, and culture. He described what it felt like to watch talent be stifled, to ship great work and still be punished for it, to see leadership value control over innovation. And then he described what came next, Novatech's vision. Their values. Their belief that people mattered more than titles. The post went viral. Thousands of shares. Support from top tech leaders. Even a few quiet LinkedIn messages from people still stuck inside Synertech, saying thank you. Mark's smear campaign died by Monday. Novatech? Stronger than ever. 6 months later. At Novatech HQ, a celebration was underway. They just signed their biggest customer yet, a rapidly scaling fintech company that chose Novatech over Asana and Monday.com. The deal? $1.2 million per year. Multi-year commitment. Global rollout. Ethan stood quietly at the back of the office while the team toasted with cold brew and kombucha. Rachel caught his eye and handed him a mocktail. "You still surprised?" she asked. "A little," he admitted. "But mostly proud." Jordan appeared beside them. "We just passed 100,000 users. I think we need a bigger cactus." They laughed. Ethan looked around at the people, the ones who left comfort for chaos, security for vision. The ones who believed in him when all he had was an idea and a keyboard. He wasn't chasing revenge anymore. He was chasing legacy. Epilogue, one last email. Late that night, as the office emptied out, Ethan sat at his desk and opened a new email. To all@novatech.io. Subject, 1 year later. Hi team. Exactly 1 year ago today, I walked out of a glass building with a cactus in my hand and no idea what was next. All I knew was that something needed to change. That change became Novatech. You didn't just join a company. You helped build one. You believed in something before the world caught on. And that belief is what carried us to today. Here's to year 2. Let's make it count. Ethan. He hit send. Outside the window, the city lights glowed like a promise. Novatech had arrived. And they were just getting started.